Anyway, welcome to the very first Soulful Sessions live on Sundays. I've dreamed about doing this for a while, and so I'm really excited. There's Leah. Hi, sweetheart. Welcome, welcome. I'm really excited to do this. This has actually been a dream of mine for a while. There's Todd Maki. I might know that guy. Welcome, everybody, to the very first Soulful Sessions live. Today, we're talking about wild attunement. So I just wanted to kind of flow in to give those that are new, that are popping on, or anyone that's watching the recording, just to get to know me a little bit. My name's Jennifer Maki, and I'm author of Just One Soulful Thing. I'm a speaker and a coach to entrepreneurs in healthcare, different executives in that industry. I'm the creator of the Soulful Way, and I've been a retreat facilitator for a number of years. I've probably most importantly in my life, one of the things that makes my heart sing the most is that I was able to homeschool our two boys. And I have the most incredible partner who's actually joined on today. And we partnered, to be able to homeschool our children. And together we started something called the Mad Hero Project. This is where I kind of took all the learning that I was doing over 20 years in workshops and with healthcare companies and educators, and put it into a program for our boys that we took on missions of kind of the me and we kind. And mission me's were mindfulness training, and mission we's were things that we did as a family to connect and to be able to tap our soul and that voice within. And then we took it out into the world, and we ran different types of fundraising projects for organizations throughout communities, and did, volunteering experiences. And the reason that I share that is that all those inner leadership experiences. Oh, I see. Hello. Hi, Logan. Hi, folks. It's great to have you here. This is, as I was saying just initially, this has been a big dream of mine to be able to have enough time outside of homeschooling the boys, now that they're launched, to be able to do these Soulful Sessions live and to build community here. So welcome. I'm just thrilled to have you here. So all of these things that I've done throughout the course of my lifetime, building those inner leadership skills first within myself, and then working with teams and companies and individuals and entrepreneurs to be able to help them do that, it all began with wild attunement. So this is the reason for the theme for this week, kicking us off on these Soulful Sessions. Oh, I love those hearts. Thank you. So wild attunement, without this concept of wild attunement, without this idea, I would not have been able to do anything that I did as a homeschool mom. I wouldn't have been able to live in different countries and have really rich and powerful experiences, both personally and professionally. I would not be here today without this concept. So this idea of wild attunement is kind of that foundation for everything. So first of all, I just want to talk about what these Soulful Sessions are about, so that people that are watching the recording or that are joining with us today kind of understand this, because this is all new for me, and it's all new for us. And so this is really the idea of these Soulful Sessions, is about having weekly live gatherings for those that feel called to kind of tap and align in with their inner wisdom, the way they work, the way they live, create and love, and tell our stories. And so each session explores a theme. So this week is wild attunement, but we'll talk about presence and purpose and creativity and relationships, conscious parenting, storytelling. And the idea is that all of that in the discussions, they translate into these simple, soulful practices that allow us to shift how we live and how we appreciate and connect with every day. And so every week I'm going to draw from different experiences that I've had, breakthroughs with challenges and with clients, and overcoming those challenges through coaching clients, lessons from parenting and partnership, insights from creating and leading those retreats that I've talked about, both locally and internationally, creative rituals from my own writing and authoring journey, and then the teachings that are woven through the book that I wrote, Just One Soulful Thing, because it was such a powerful outpouring from my heart. And so we'll weave in those stories. So really, the Soulful Sessions every Sunday, it's really where our soulful intention meets everyday life, where your inner knowing meets your work, where your story, your relationships, and your purpose meet their next level in their evolution. And so that's the goal. This all exists just to support you, whether you're aligning your business with your soulful next level success, you're parenting with presence and intention, deepening your relationships, weaving your unique life story and wisdom into words. It's just that step into embracing that next level of our soulful lives that we both envision and we deserve. And so I'll be posting the elements of these recordings. If you miss week to week and you're not able to make the live, not to worry, the recordings will be posted. But what I'm really hoping for here is about building soulful community. Substack is really great for that. When I first came, I was on another number of other social media platforms, and I know most of you that are tuning in and those that will see the recording. It's very true that we connected with all these other soulful, social media experiences, but they didn't always have that soul piece. And so I've tried to create that on other social media platforms, but when I came to Substack, it took it up a whole other level. I think it's the platform for those of us that are really craving that soulful connection, to read long form, to dive into our creative experiences and really be present with another person's work and creations. And for me, I'm happy to do these soulful session lives. And, I'm a professional speaker and I love doing this. But really, the thing that jazzes me is about being able to create community and have conversations. So I'm really hoping that this leads to you tapping into the soulful community via the chat, the Soulful Way chat. And then, because I want to hear about what you're doing, what you're creating, we want to be able to support you on a regular basis. And so I'm hoping that all leads to this. But if you're just tapping into the live, that's okay too. When I was working out in the world, I worked on social capital building campaigns, which was as communities grow, and they're not able to kind of have that feeling of that small town community. I worked in one city, Calgary, that grew very, very quickly. And so we built these social capital building campaigns, which was about creating soulful connections between individuals to build social capital and community, which statistically we're able to build better lives, we're able to build better businesses, we feel connected to one another, and that improves our mental health and our sense of worth, our sense of community, our sense of contribution. And so that's the kind of the goal with these soulful sessions. So thank you for being here for the first one, and I hope you come back again and again and again. So let's just dive into this idea of what wild attunement is. So it's the soulful practice of opening. It's opening to a concept that I talk about in Just One Soulful Thing called just this, the simple, sacred presence in the moment, just the moment we're in. It seems such a simple concept, and many people talk about it in many, many different types of works, but it's something that we need to realign with, reconnect with on a regular basis, because it is where the present is our present. As my father used to say, the present is the present. And then when we're taking a look, a lot of what we worry about and what we ruminate about is happening in the past. And so it's not present there. It's not in that moment. And the things that we're worrying about for our future, what we want to create, what do we want to do, we just suspend that for a moment in time and we just become particularly attuned to the present that we're in. So just this idea of aligning to the majesty that's all around us, that voice within us, the simple of our everyday, and the beauty that we enter into when we get into nature or we're doing anything that's creative, whether that's writing or painting or, reading the story on Substack, or whether you're with your children or you're with a partner. And so it's about reattuning, realigning. This for me really began when I was a little girl, and I grew up on a 20-acre farm, sprawling nature. And it wasn't a working farm, but we had 4 horses, and so they were my best friends. And every day my sisters were 10 and 13 years older than I was. So I was like an only child. And off I would go every day. My mom would put a whistle around my neck and off I would traipse out into these 20 acres to be able to roam. And that's where I first realized that there was this voice within me. I was enamored and connected to nature all around me, and everything was personified. So I had an oak tree that I would lie under. I used to call it my fir tree, but I don't know where that ever came from, but that was like I would talk about it as my fir tree, and my mother would laugh. And I would lie under this oak tree and I would feel completely attuned to the tree, to the leaves, to the breeze, to the sound of the heat bugs, to the sun pouring through the trees. And I would feel this connection to the moment. I don't know how my mom ever allowed it, but I was actually able to just roam in the corral with the horses, and I just felt so connected to them. They were my best friends. And so I felt this aliveness in the world, and that comes so naturally to us when we're children. As the world gets a hold of us, we lose kind of some of that connection. But I was wildly attuned to every moment. My imagination was on fire. My mom had given me this book about fairies, and so I would sit in the lily bells at the side of our farm, and I would imagine that I was sitting with Peachwing and Coralwing, and I would feel connected to this beautiful, vast world of possibility. And so it's about getting back there and listening again to that voice within. So that's really where I heard the voice. And I didn't call it God. It wasn't anything, it wasn't anything religious for me. And as I grew through the years, it's that spiritual, that soulful best friend within. And so this wild attunement is about resetting. It's about resetting that connection to our soul. It's about resetting that connection to the voice within, to the wonder and the majesty all around us, and to weaving that into everything that we think and we see and we say and we create and we do, and remembering that at our core, that's who we are. And so it can get off kilter as the world gets a hold of us and the busyness of the world, gets a hold of us. So for me, it began as that child, and then it became this attuning to that voice within became a lifeline for me throughout the years. And beyond that, not only a lifeline moving through challenging times of my life, but it has actually become a well of wisdom that I've been able to tap into and draw from again and again and again. And it really has, listening to that voice within has really been the reason that I've been able to achieve the vision, the goals, living in different countries, working with different types of clients, being able to have that balance with my family, to be able to attract the man of my dreams into my world, and for us to have a beautiful marriage over 20 years. It's been about tapping into that wild wisdom and that soul and that voice within and following wherever it leads, even when people think you're crazy, time and time and time again. And so it's really empowered me, and I want to be able to offer insight or reminder or reconnection for you, and to talk about these things and to hear your ideas on them as well too, because I'm sure there've been, like all of us, there've been times when you've been keenly aligned with that wild wisdom, with that voice within. And then there's other times when you feel off kilter, when you feel out of alignment. And so we need to have those tools to be able to come back again and again. And really it's about trusting ourselves. That, one of the questions I get in my workshops is, well, how do I know the difference between the voice that's kind of nattering and running in my head and the one that's really running beneath that stream and that chaos that's really guiding me in that soulful way? How can I tell the difference? And really my answer is that when you become still, first of all, it doesn't usually happen in the swirl. It's harder to listen to in the swirl. But it's when you become still and you listen. And so there's a story that I tell. I'm just going to grab a sip of water. Hi, everybody. Anyone that's joining us new, thrilled to have you here. I'm Jennifer Maki with the Soulful Way, and I'm thrilled that you've taken a little bit of time on your Sunday morning to just soulfully tap in. I'm thrilled to have you here. Welcome. So I tell a story in a lot of my workshops that's called the guru at the party. And so the analogy is that our lives are an incredible party that's swirling all the time with beautiful people, lots of food, lots of cocktails, drinks, whatever your cocktail or your drink of choice is. There's music, there's entertainment, there's lots going on. Ideas are swirling, great conversations are being had, and it's all a whirl, and it's a beautiful, vibrant, extraordinary party that we get to call our life. And then we notice in the midst of kind of that swirl and some of that chaos, we notice in the back of the room that there is, man or woman, there's a guru. It doesn't matter what it looks like, but it has this eminence of peace. And we notice when we look closer that this guru is whispering incessantly, constantly. And that, when we recognize that that is actually our soul in the party, and that we could have every answer to every question we have ever had to come to us with ease and with grace. when we realize that the only thing that is missing is the noise. It's missing, and we have to send everybody home in order to be able to tap in. So to be able to hear that soul of us, that whisper, that innate wisdom within, we have to be able to send people home from the party for a while. And we have to be able to center in and to connect in with that beautiful voice, with that beautiful part of ourselves that always, always has the highest desire for our greatest good as we grow. And so that's kind of this idea of resetting and reattuning and wildly attuning and committing consciously to listening to that within us. And so my father used to say that we would plug in, turn on, and tune in. And that's basically what we're doing when we commit to this sense of conscious wild attunement, not just this, but also whatever moment we're in, whatever experience we're having, and listening to that voice within. When we wild. So what does this look like in our lives? So when we wildly attune, we reset that voice within, we realign with our soul, we reclaim our innate knowing. And with practice, because oftentimes it takes practice if we're not used to doing this, we learn to trust ourselves again. And we learn to listen more and more to that voice within, to turn down the world and to turn up the volume on the whispers of that guidance within ourselves. 2 years ago, I walked 233 kilometers of El Camino. And it was during a season when really there were few tourists. I was often on my own, and I would walk about 15 to 30 kilometers a day. And this wild attunement, this concept, this idea came to me day by day. As you can imagine, when you're on those long roads for hours and hours and you're in complete silence and you are in the midst of this beautiful nature. And actually it was in February, so it wasn't this gorgeous, blossoming nature. It was nature that had pulled back, that was in stillness itself, that was in rebirth itself underneath the surface of things. Wild metaphor for the time in which I was walking. But this wild attunement came to me more and more every single day. I learned to see with completely new eyes, with fresh eyes, to bask in that silence and the sounds of the world all around me, to pause and stop when I felt called, to listen to the birds, to see what was around me in the clouds, hear what was happening in the breeze, and to feel that sense of reconnection on a level, even though I had meditated and spent time on my own quite a bit in life, and I thought I was really attuning. It happened on a whole other level. And the more I wandered, the deeper the silence, the clearer the voice. And what it made me realize is that I had so much more committed work to do in this area. And that the ideas that came during that whole experience, and actually the first book in the Soulful Seekers that I wrote is called Just One Soulful Thing. But one of the next books in the series is called Rekindling the Art of the Wander, where I tell the stories of El Camino, because so many powerful ideas came when I was in that state of wander. And we don't need to fly and get on a plane and go and do that. We can do that every single day. And when I came home, I started to implement those deeper practices that I'm going to share a little bit more with you today. So how do we get you there right here, right now, without getting on that plane, without, having to fly you all the way to El Camino? And what does this mean really to our practical lives? So I'm going to start with how it kind of plays out, and then I'm going to talk about how we get there, and give you some maybe new ideas or deepen the ideas that are kindling within your own soul, and inklings that you have in your own way and in your own right. So as parents and partners and friends, and those that are committed to contributing to community and really wanting to be what we call in the Mad Hero Project, vigilant observers and compassionate thinkers, that modern day hero. And the idea of a vigilant observer is someone that is not going to turn away when difficult things come, when we see challenging things happening around us. We are not going to turn away and pretend that it's not happening. We can be those vigilant observers. And then we can be those compassionate thinkers. It doesn't always mean that we can change the situation, but we can hold thoughts for change in regard to that. We can hold space for what's happening, but we can also, and we have a desire to dig within deeper to really see what's going on. And we oftentimes can't see that in the swirl of emotion that's happening or the noise or the busy of the party of our lives every single day. And so it's about reconnecting with that voice within us to really listen. And so what I mean by that, or an example of that, is that, when my son was really young, and this was one of the first times this idea of wild attunement really kind of hit me in a concrete and personal way. Mm. And so it was the first time that it really hit me and came to me in this vision. So our son was having temper tantrums, and he was about 3 years old at the time, but it was unusual. When he was born, he was called the Buddha baby. And so he was having these temper tantrums, and I could see him getting escalatingly more frustrated and more frustrated. And I've always believed, and I had children older in life, and I'd been doing a lot of this work for a lot of years before I had kids. And so I did have some of those tools already at the ready. And so I thought, there's a message for me here. So I encourage my clients, and I do it myself, and it's maybe a cliche now because people say it a lot, but you really not ask why this is happening, but what can I learn from this? And so it's one thing to ask and another to go to the source for the reasoning behind it. And so I went into meditation, and I would still, and then I would ask the question. It didn't come right away, but I would ask the question, how can I help my son be more peaceful? What's going on here? What am I needing to learn in this? And so one night, as I was heading into bed, I kind of refreshed the question, and I really was just allowing it, because part of it is, not gripping your hand in the water. It's opening your hand and letting it flow, the ideas to flow, so that you're not grasping, you're allowing it to come in the right timing. And so I just went to bed, and I asked this question again, and I woke up in the middle of the night. Usually it's about 3:33 in the morning, because that's like my magic number. And I woke up, and I knew exactly. I knew exactly what was going on inside his little heart and mind. And I could see him, I could hear him and his voice. And he just wanted more control of his world. That he had grown to this point where he felt more responsibility, and now he felt like he didn't have enough control, that he was still feeling, he's caught between that baby and just getting to the toddler, I can do things for myself stage. And honest to goodness, it was as though his soul was speaking to mine. And I woke up in the morning, and I knew exactly what to do. I went into the kitchen, and I rearranged the kitchen, and I put all of his bowls and plates and spoons down in a little drawer that he could get to. And I rearranged some of the art cupboards the same way. And then when he got up in the morning, he came into the kitchen, and I said, "Honey, like, let's take a look. I rearranged some things so that you can do things for yourself, because you're getting to be a big boy now." And I walked him around him, and I showed all the things that he could now do on his own. And literally, there were no more temper tantrums for a while. It's not like it ended forever, because there was the next thing for me to tap into and to understand. But for probably, I don't know how long, but that was solved. And it wasn't solved, although there are many resources out there. There are many books, there are many things to read, there are many gems, so many wise people around us. But nobody knows us like we know us. Nobody understands our life. Nobody understands who we are. Nobody really knows what we've been through. Nobody knows our kids like we do. Nobody knows our partner or our friends the way that we do. And oftentimes we can be looking outside of ourselves for the answers, when really, if we just came to stillness and we asked the question within, we would be able to tap that wisdom, find the answer, and to help to ease someone else's pain, suffering, concern, worry, or upliftment. So that's like a parenting example. Just gonna plug in my phone. Realize I'm getting a little low. Hi, everybody. I can see a few new people joined us. Hi, Brenda. Oh, it's lovely to kind of meet you. I read so much of your beautiful stuff. And Susan, welcome. I'm just thrilled to have all of you, and lovely Logan. I'm so glad to have you back in my beautiful orbit. You're such a beautiful, my soul sphere. I love that you're in my soul sphere, girl. So welcome back. I'm just so excited to see you here. And so We're talking now just about how this practicality of wild attunement works in our lives. I was talking about being on El Camino, and of course, when we go away, when we sit on the top of a mountain or we sit in meditation, in some, ashram, it's very easy to come to that place of wild attunement. But but it's more difficult in our daily lives. And so putting in these practical practices in place is really important for us to be able to realize that a lot of the answers that we seek are already within us. And so it's just reconnecting. And a lot of us know that practically. Um, and many of us practice it, especially if you're a beautiful creative writer and you're tapping into this on your own. But we can never have enough reminders about coming back to center again and again and helping one another to elevate and evolve on the journey. And so this is what today is about. This is what these live sessions are about. And so I was giving an example as a parent, why to be able to just turn this to the business side of things, because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, writers, psychiatrists, psychotherapists, different types of executive clients, but people with that soulful desire to kind of take their work, their business, their service to new levels. And so how does this wild attunement fit in on that business building or serving in the world level? So really, a lot of times when my clients come to me, they have a vision. They have an idea of what they want to do. I deal with people that really have something already moving in their life, and they want to take it to that next level. And having a background in kind of psychology and communications and public relations and promotions and all those beautiful flows, that creates a really cohesive coaching relationship because we look at all things on all levels. So we look at the personal side of things, and then we look at the professional side of things, because those things are not separated. We do not want to wear different masks for different experiences. We want to be able to flow together in that alignment and that cohesiveness where who we are is who we are all the time. And our souls are shining through in it all. And so when it comes to business, when I work with my clients, it's about and really they're tapping their voice all the time, but it's next level. So it guides everything from you think you have that vision, but when you get still, sometimes when you ask the right questions, you realize that you can't do all the things all at once, but you can do them over time. And so it's about learning to trust your voice again, to get quiet again, to look within, to ask yourself those questions, to be able to tap into that so that you can get the plan, the ideas that are to be prioritized. So it's a practical application as well, too. And even when I work with my psychiatry or psychotherapist clients who are gifted healers and gifted helpers and supporters in the world, we're always having to relook at how we're giving this to ourselves. And sometimes it's an aha moment. And so it's about asking those questions and going in from the very beginning where you think you have a vision, you have a plan. And oftentimes when we are creators, we have swirling ideas. There's 1,000 things that we could be doing and focusing our time on. And so sometimes it's tapping into that voice to be able to understand what your priorities are. Not that you're not going to do it all. Some things you'll throw at the wayside. Some things it's just, what can I do now? We talk about it in the book. What's just one soulful thing I can do now? And so working with my clients, it is about meditation practices. It is about stilling practices. It is about getting back to that wild attunement within so that it guides your business. There is not a single thing that I write or do or create for a client anymore in my life that does not come from that place. And I never go out before I go in. Today, I spent a couple of hours meditating before I got here today to be able to move within and to really determine how I could best serve you today. And so it's about relearning that, whether we're parents, partners, attuning to our partner, what is really going on when there's an emotion that's flaring up. How can we see that in a different light? How can we hold our partner in that light so that we can see them as whole and okay and beautiful and healthy and vibrant and capable? And then to ask ourselves the question, if my partner is out of alignment, why? And how can I support them in them coming to their own answers to be able to choose their next step on the path and the evolution in their own life, in their own adventure. And so, that's how it kind of relates to parents, partnering, and clients. And then as writers, because we have a company called Mad Hero Publications, it's a bit of a different, an anti-traditional publishing company in that even though I work in promotions and marketing, I really don't do that side of the business. It's about organic flow, but drawing the story out of a person because every single one of us has a story, and there is no feeling in the world like spending time in that soulful place and then weaving your experiences and what you have been through and what you have conquered and what you have endured and what you have inspired in the world around you, to remember that and then to weave that into words and to put it into form and to hold it in your hand and then give it to the people that you love. And so that's really what we do there. So when it comes to your story, it's about that process of going within, what is my story? What experiences can be gifts to others, can help me to evolve to another level? And how do I weave those into words? And so there is really not a single thing. And that's why it's funny, because for a number of years in communications, people would say to me, you've got this great idea about, wild attunement or the soulful way or whatever that is. And they'd say, you have to pick an audience. And I work in communication. So with most of my clients, I say, you have to pick an audience. There has to be a target audience, right? I work in marketing. I get it. But this is really the foundation for everything. So the audience is vast. It depends on how you apply it because it's the same foundational skill. This wild attunement, this reset, this reconnection to the voice within, to be able to reclaim your own wild wisdom and to have radical trust, self-trust, which is the theme for next week, by the way, in case you're going to tune in. This idea, this is the foundation of everything. It's how we live. It's how we work. It's how we parent. It's how we serve. It's how we show up in community. It's everything. And so it's really important that we understand this on whatever level we need to, with whatever words that we use, that we reattune, reclaim, reconnect on a regular basis. And it really can be the difference between life and death. And I say that, I don't say that lightly. For those of you that have read Just One Soulful Thing, there's a few of you on here, you know the story in depth, and I won't get into all of it today, but I had a stroke in 2019, and being wildly attuned to what was happening within me saved my life. And so I knew I was having a stroke. I actually thought, oh, this is what it feels like to have a stroke. And then my next thought was, please don't let me be debilitated so that my family has to take care of me. I had young kids, I think they were 11 and 13 at the time, 12 and a half. And I thought, please don't let that happen to me. But because I had spent so much time in meditation, in wildly attuning within on quite a consistent basis, I was aware of what was happening within me. And then, I did crumple to the ground and I got myself to the couch and I whispered to my husband, and he came whipping down the stairs as though I'd shouted at the top of my lungs. And thank you for being soulfully attuned to me, my lovely Todd. And he came down, he was right there with me, and he kind of went through the assessment. So those of you, I didn't tell it in the book, but he did, he's even in the midst of chaos, he's very humorous. So he was like, okay, honey, follow my eye, you have your eyes follow my finger, and then, say Peter Piper picked a peck of peppers. And so he was having me do these little exercises that we don't even know is in our bank, right? Until it's called to the forefront. And so he wasn't saying it in a humorous way at the time, but we had a good chuckle about it afterwards. And then our son, Nathaniel, came down the stairs. And I literally saw before me a crossroad appear, two roads at a crossroad. I was at a crossroad. And one was to succumb to the fear, I saw it as an abyss, like falling off a cliff. And I could swirl down into worry, into all the meaning that this stroke could have for my life, projecting into the future all of the horrendous experiences that could happen if this stroke continued on the trajectory that it was on. And then I saw the other road. And ironically enough, it was the road of surrender. And it was the road of, it's okay. The voice of my childhood that I talked about on that farm, I've got goosebumps from the inside out. I'll try to say it without crying. But I could hear that voice say, You're okay, love. You're okay. Just stay with me." And so I just went into meditation and I looked at Nathaniel and I just said, "Honey, I'm okay." And I said it slowly and quietly. And I said, "I'm okay. Mommy's okay. I'll come up and see you in a moment." And I just dropped right down into meditation. And when I went to the hospital afterwards, there's much more to the story, as you can imagine. You can read more about it in the book, or, I'm sure I'll talk about it other times. But really the whole connection to this wild attunement is that being so aligned with that voice within, with listening, with being open to listening, I was able to hear the whisper, the guru at the party that I talked about, that had the answer for me. And the answer was to surrender and to get into deeper quiet. And when I went to emergency afterward and I talked to the doctor, and keeping in mind that for 20 years, I've been doing this for over 20 years. When I first started doing workshops for Calgary Health Region for 22,000 employees, and then Alberta Health Services, I was a keynote speaker talking about heroism in the workplace for 100,000 employees. When I first started this work with healthcare workers, it was a foreign concept to talk about being able to have a role, a very major role, a foundational, fundamental role in your health. But when I would do these talks and I would talk about dis-ease would lead to disease, I never had a doctor or nurse ever dispute that, even way back when. So somewhere underneath they did know it, but there wasn't a language. There wasn't a way of talking about this just quite yet in the healthcare industry. But when I went to the doctor and I had the stroke and I told him that I dropped down into meditation, I felt a hallelujah in my soul because he looked at me and said, "That probably saved your life." And there is an acknowledgement now of us being able to still and quiet and calm and come to a place of reverence and deep connection within ourselves for the answers for what we need next. And so there is now an understanding in the world, and the world is much more open to that. So that's what this is that's what this whole wild attunement is all about. So, how do we do this? How do you connect with this? What can I give you today? That was my question this morning, was how do I serve you? What can I give you today to walk away, to either deepen your own practice or to start it for the first time, to reconnect and rekindle the relationship with your own wild wisdom and to wildly attune. And so, one of the things I think might serve you today is to share with you the just this mantra from my book. So, and this is not a plug. I offer a lot of free tools online. If you want the deeper dive, it's the name of the book is Just One Soulful Thing. But this really is the whole idea of the mantra of just this is, so I'm just going to read straight from the book. And this is in the section, Just This, and it's called the mantra section. Our mantra for the first step in our journey, because just one soulful way is a way, many, many steps, but this is the first, is just this, just this, just this, over and over again in your present moment. All it takes for us to shift our ways, to move us closer to what we value and deeply desire and who we long to be consistently, is one tiny action, one choice, just one thing. It begins by simply raising our awareness to what is, to the right now, right here of the moment we are in. When the overwhelm sets in, we just hit pause on the whole mind contemplation and spinning thing. When rapture meets us where we stand, we can still time. We can do this, just hit pause. Amidst the challenges, this does not mean that life circumstances will immediately change, but we can step outside, rise up and away from it all for a minute or for many. First, this allows us to breathe, to gain perspective, to find relief, and often, if not always, leads to our ability to better cope, better navigate, better respond to what is happening. This can affect the current situation, and it can create a ripple effect of claiming not only the calm and the clarity and the chaos. Oh, it's 11:11. I love that, Logan. Thank you. My husband will be thinking that as well, too. So this can affect the current situation, and it can create a ripple effect of claiming not only the calm in the clarity in the chaos, but a pattern of feeling completely in tune and in control of our actions, adhering to the emotions, the whisperings, not of our fearful, wavering self, but our higher, soulful, centered, compassionate, loving self. And in the beauty of life, we can linger a little longer and mark the magic on our souls to carry forth on the days when the shadows overcome the light. And so it goes on actually to talk about the practical application of this. But this really is about just this in everything you do. When you're taking a shower, just this, feeling the water cascade over you, washing away your thoughts, feeling the warmth, feeling the gratitude for being able to take a hot shower with us in the 1% of the world. When you're making something, in your kitchen, being grateful for a family to cook for, or for the utensils that are in your kitchen, or a home that you have, being completely present in washing the dishes and feeling grateful you have a dish to wash. There really is a majesty in this coming back to again and again and again the moment. And so I hope you make your mantra this week just this again and again and see what happens. I want to hear about it. Okay, our next one is to wander. So you don't have to go to El Camino to do this. Go anywhere where it's quiet. This idea of wild attunement and the wording of this, and even doing the SoulFull sessions, came to me in a forest just down the road that I go to on the regular, and it was about wandering. There is something about walking, being wildly attuned. And when I do these walks in groups, we do a meditation beforehand. So you consciously center yourself before you head in. You think about the fact that you're going to go on the very first walk of your life. Imagine what that would feel like to go back and take the very first walk of your life. Most of us don't even remember when that was. We were a baby, child. But to imagine that it's the very first walk of your life, to open your hands. So I walk with my hands open, with my arms at my sides and my palms out. There's something that happens there where you just feel like your heart opens. You just open to the whole awareness of everything that's around you. And then you just see with new eyes, listen with new ears, pause all along the way, just the way you would when you were a child. If there's a butterfly that floats, you would never have skipped past that as a child. You would have paused and stared at it. If there was dew on a leaf, you would pause and you would stare at the dew on the leaf. I just came back a little while ago, just a couple of weeks ago, from I've done retreats for years, but we did our first retreat in Guatemala. It was called the SoulFull Retreat. And we did the retreat in Guatemala. And I just wrote about this actually in the SoulFull Way, the newsletter from last week. So if you haven't read it, you can tap back into that one. And so we did our wander. It was actually the first day, because the wild attunement's a big one, right? To kick off everything. So on our first day of the retreat, we did this wild wander in this beautiful garden in a place called Las Farolas, which means the lamppost, which I thought was awesome because one of my favorite book series is that Narnia series by C.S. Lewis. And hi, the Rebuilt Project. Welcome, whoever is coming on that's new, welcome. So we're talking about wild attunement. We're talking about the practical application at this point. There will be a recording of all that we said before, but there's we're in the practical application part of this. And so we're talking about how to tap into this wild attunement is by going on these wanders. And so when I was in Guatemala, we did this wild wander. And the beautiful, beautiful souls that were on this wander, I could cry thinking about it. A couple of them may even be on here, or they'll be seeing the recording and knowing that I'm thinking about you and I'm talking about you. They just embraced every moment of this, and we went on the very first wander of our lives. Hi, Sea Salt, welcome. We went on the very first wander of our lives. And we saw everything with new eyes. And what came back when we shared afterwards, we went in silence, we went on our own, we wandered solo. That was a big part of El Camino for me, was wandering solo. And then meeting up with your people, in the village or whatever, and having a beautiful talk about what happened during the day. But I was quite clear about the desire to walk solo. And so I do this a lot. My husband and I will go out for walks and we will walk solo and then meet up and talk about everything that we saw and everything that we experienced in the voice within and how it was chiming in and great ideas. And it's just a magical way of seeing the world and resetting and reattuning with this voice within. And so we did this walk through Las Farolas, this beautiful garden at the hotel that we were staying in Antigua in Guatemala. And it was funny when we came back, we all talked about the fact that we saw things not just that were blooming and beautiful, but we saw how even in the decomposition of certain things, it was still alive. Like we all tended to notice that normally when we do a walk, we notice all the beautiful things around us, the butterflies and the gorgeous orchids and and the trees and everything. But because we were in this wild attunement, this wild wander, and we were paying attention to everything, all of us came back with a story about how we had noticed like a spider web had been destroyed, or there was something wrapped up in a spider web, or the decomposition of some of the flowers or the pods that were on the trees, where there was still life that wasn't beautiful, what we would call aesthetically beautiful life, but it was beautiful life in its darkness, in the spiders, in the life that was still alive, in something that we wouldn't normally see as aesthetically pleasing, but very much a part of life, of vibrant living. And so this idea of getting out into your community, wherever you go, just go on the very first walk of your life, as if you've never walked this path before, and take a wander this week. And again, just like I said about just this and how you tie that into your day, and you go on this new wander, I want to hear about it. So for those that are joining in, this is a weekly session that we're going to do, tapping into our souls, the soulful sessions weekly. We'll have different themes. Next week is radical self-trust. So that's a fun one. And how it plays out in our parenting and our work and our lives. And, I work with entrepreneurs and coaches, and I'm a speaker in healthcare and education. And so I'm just kind of weaving in those stories, but we're talking about how these foundational concepts in these soulful sessions about presence, about attunement, about alignment, how it all plays out in different areas of our beautiful, enriched lives. And then the practical practices that we can utilize to be able to incorporate more of that into our lives. So the next one, so the first was just this from the book, Just One Soulful Thing. And next one, Wander. And I was saying in the Soulful Seeker series, the book coming down the line is Rekindling the Art of the Wander, where I talk about those stories and all the incredible downloads from El Camino. And the next one, the third one is, I call it Soul Vibe. And so there's an acronym. I love the acronyms, right? So Soul Vibe, it helps you to remember and to understand what Soul Vibe is. And so I do want to pause here because there's a lot of information coming at you. If you connect in the Soulful Way chat afterwards, I'm going to actually do a little thank you in there. If you connect in that chat, I will email you the handout for this. So it's a little recap, and it's some what we call soulful action items for your week. And so if you send me a little note, because really this for me is about building a community where we support one another, not just that I talk at you or to you, but that we engage in conversation. I want to hear about what you create. I want to follow what you do. I want us to have this soulful community. That's really why I love Substack and what we're really all about. And so as I put this through, do not be worried, although I'm sure some of you are journaling and taking notes. That's me anyway. You can have this in the handout. So the acronym Soul Vibe stands for S is for still, right? We just need to become still in order to be able to hear anything at all. The guru at the party, like I talked about before, that wisdom within you, that voice within you, stillness is the key. Coming to rest. O is for open. We need to be open. Open to the voice, open to new ideas, open to what comes, whatever that is, in its own timing. U is for unify. So unify is about bringing into awareness the different parts of ourselves, the brain, the body, the heart, your spirit, and your soul. So it's being open and understanding the different aspects. It's called the 5 facets of we in the book. But understanding those 5 facets, those beautiful, rich parts of ourselves, your brain being how you think and your intellect your body being the vessel that carries it all around and makes it all possible on this mortal coil. Your heart is about how you connect with other people and how you communicate in relationship and engage in relationship. Spirit is about your dancy little spirit that just wants to jump in the puddles and have fun and laugh and giggle and be a kid again and tap into that limitless possibility, wrap that cape around your shoulders and jump off the back of the couch. And your soul is that ancient element of yourself that is just so wise and so clear and so all-knowing. So soul stands for, first, for just through the SOU. So still, open, unify. And then L is to listen. So you still and you open and you imagine all those parts of yourself, and then you just listen. The vibe, V, stands for venerate, which means to honor. Honoring the voice that comes. Oftentimes, if you're a writer or you're a creator, like lots of these beautiful souls on Substack are, creator in any way, art, music, writing, whatever your way is, whatever your soulful way is, we know that we do not want to diss the muse, right? When the muse comes, whether it's 3 a.m, and not all of us can live those lives. The muse always comes around again, but not always with the same idea or the same inkling or the same thought. And so we always want to honor that muse. So to venerate, to honor that voice that comes, that wisdom that comes when we still and we open, and we're open and listening to all parts of ourselves. We want to be able to honor that. And then I in vibe stands for initiate. So to take action, right? Because we can have all the dreams and all the voices, that beautiful ideas and the inklings that come. But if we do not initiate, if we do not take action, even as we talk about in the book, just one soulful thing at a time, then we can't bring that voice, those ideas, that creation, that creative. We can't bring it into the world, which is where it's meant to be, because you have a unique purpose in this world to serve and to show up and to give and to inspire and to empower. That's why you're here. And so we have to be able to initiate. And then B, it sounds so cliche, this word nowadays, but belief. We have to trust in that voice within us, in the initiation that we take. We have to believe that we are here for a purpose, that our soul is here for a purpose, to be able to permeate and emanate and illuminate. And so we need to believe again, the way we did when we were kids with no problem. And E in vibe stands for evolve. So embracing, right? Evolve in your learning, in your vision, in how you come about it, in what you do and how you do it. You have to evolve. You have to adapt and evolve. So again, soul stands for still, open, unify, listen. Vibe stands for venerate, initiate, believe, and evolve. Okay. Last one is meditation. So meditation is just that concentrated flow within that we become still, and then we take it to another level. In the book, I actually give 4 meditations I'm sure we'll weave into and talk about in these different soulful sessions. And I certainly, at different times, I sprinkle them into the Soulful Way newsletter. But the Fill to Flowing meditation is one that I have done for time immemorial. And it's a 4-step that came to me in a vision that I've shared. I worked in hospice for a number of years. I was trained in hospice, then I worked in hospice or helped in hospice, not as an official worker, but as a volunteer and supporting both my mom through end of life, my father through end of life. And the reason I mention that is this Fill to Flowing meditation, whether you're just starting or whether you are moving on beyond the veil. It serves on so many powerful levels, and there's just 4. And for me, it'll be another theme where we talk about deepening versus expansion, but deepening simple practice as opposed to gather. Deepening a soulful simple practice often allows us to feel a deeper connection with our voice, to deepen our practice, to deepen the way that we see things. And so this Fill to Flowing is very simple. Fill Me is about filling with light. Heal Me is about breathing out what doesn't serve. Hold Me is about feeling safe. And Flow Through Me is about when we have that light, when we know we are in charge of our healing. When we feel held and safe, we flow it out into the world. We not only give it, but we receive it. And so I actually did a little rendition of it. It comes in different parts. One is that you do it inside. It's in the book, but I also did a little one. It's a little video that I did this last week. It will be in the newsletter that I post tomorrow. So Sundays are the Soulful sessions where we do live and we recap the week. And then Monday is the tone setting for the next week. But because I've just started this, I'm going to put the Feel to Flowing video in that. Hi, Donna. Great to see you. Welcome. So I will put that little video of the Feel to Flowing into the newsletter for this week. But if you want any support in that, let me know. But it's just about whatever your meditative practice is, getting back to that, to be able to understand that that's a really important part of the stilling process, is to get back to that meditation, whether it's through your wander that we talked about, these 4 steps. So just to recap, just this is about being present in the moment, wandering and taking the very first wander of your whole life this week, then being able to tap that soul vibe that I talked about, the different steps to still, to open, to unify, to listen, to venerate, to initiate, to believe, and to evolve. And then doing a Feel to Flowing type meditation, filling with the light, breathing out what doesn't serve you, feeling that hold, that being held in that loving embrace, and then allowing it to flow through you. So again, the steps and all the wording and everything, I actually walk you through it in the video. And and then the meditation is just whatever practice comes along for you. So I hope, I wish, I pray for you to tap that wild wisdom in new ways this week, to really connect with that wild attunement this week in whatever way you see fit, because no one knows you like you know you, and you're the wisest soul you know. And so whatever you got to do to listen to that voice, and then to be able to tap into that, so that whatever area of your life you need a little sprinkling of that wisdom, that you can channel it into that, and you feel that deep sense of knowing, because that knowing and applying that into our lives and acting on that in our lives brings us the deepest peace that we could ever possibly imagine, and the greatest experiences in our business, in our relationships, in our life. So I wish that for you. So I'm going to open the floor up to questions. We've gone for a whole hour. I was going to do 33 minutes. I know there's no way I'm going to keep these soulful sessions to 33 minutes. So I'm going to open the floor up to questions. If you have any questions, just pop them into the chat. I'll just wait a moment, and I'm holding space for all of you in case there's anything you want to ask. And then maybe what I'll do while you're gathering your questions, if you have any, we will have an open question period. So at the end of each one of these sessions, and I know sometimes when you're on the spot, it's hard to think if you have questions or anything. So, but it is an important part of that flow back and forth. So next week is going to be radical self-trust. So whatever you imagine that to be, because you always know, whatever you imagine that to be, if you come with your questions or you have thoughts or whatever you want to bring into the mix, please do, because as I say, I'd love that conversation. Okay, so just to recap, what's happening next. So we're doing the Soulful sessions every Sunday. They're live. And then, so what happens is we do the Soulful session on the Sunday. On Monday, the Soulful Way newsletter goes out, sets the tone for the next week, recaps a little bit of how the week before went. I will put the video, though, for Feel to Flowing in the Soulful Way newsletter. So just know that if you follow me and you don't subscribe, you don't get the email. So I don't know that everybody that's joining Substack at this point really understands that. So it's not the same connection. So if you just follow, then you get it, it pops up. But if you're following a whole bunch of people, you won't always connect. So I would suggest subscribing. You get the email. You don't have to get everybody's email, but if you want that email and that's something you want to tap into, that's great. Also, if you want to pop on over to the Soulful Way chat and introduce yourself and just say, hey, I was on the call today. It was just great to connect. Tell us about what you write, maybe even link to something that you're working on right now. This is really about creating a soulful, supportive community. And there isn't a paid subscription at this point. I don't know that I'm going to do that. I'm actually going to be doing some masterminds in the new year. I'm publishing a new book called It's the Just One Soulful Thing Guided Journal. So there will be other ways for people to financially contribute. But unless I do a lot more kind of one-on-one or we do group coaching, there is no subscription part cost at this time. So you can just pop over to the chat. Sometimes that means that people don't pop in as regularly. So you can pin, Valoria from Heartfelt Boundaries showed me this, but you can pin it at the top of your chat. And so you don't miss it when people are coming in. But please, so you're talking about more real life soulful philosophy. Sea salt. Thank you for your question. So you're talking about more real life soulful philosophy. Yes, that's what all of today has been about. If that's what you're meaning, the soulful sessions are about the practical application of how we take these soulful things that we do in our lives and how we put them into the way that we run our business, the way that we parent, the way that we are in relationship with anyone, the way that we contribute to community. So it's that foundational piece. So there's many different philosophies to that. So I was talking about just one soulful thing, a book that I wrote that is about doing things just one soulful thing at a time. A lot of my work in the past has been about values, action, alignment. That's kind of where I started out over 20 years ago, and it's just deepened through the years. So that values, action, alignment, taking a look at what truly matters to us and aligning that with what we do. And soul is the foundation of all of that. And so the soulful way has kind of come out of all those years of kind of corporate or healthcare talks and living my own life and moving from kind of this idea of being in this busy world of public relations and communications, and then moving into a soulful way, homeschooling my boys, raising two boys that are now thriving and beautifully soulful, happy little beings in the world making magic. And so, yeah, it kind of touches all levels. I hope that maybe give me a little heart, sea salt, if that answers your question. And then I think, oh, this is awesome. Okay, now I can kind of see it's okay. It's hard to see the questions that come up, but I think that's it. That's cool. I'm kind of dealing with relation that has a dark soul and I'm more of a bright soul. In our relationships, it's a big one. It's a big one. I've definitely had some dark souls, some challenging, good lessons in those relationships, but it's not always easy to be able to deal with someone that doesn't meet us where we are if you're that bright soul. And so definitely please take these conversations over into the chat. If you have questions, if you have ideas, any feedback on today's session, it was a bit of a rough start, just trying to figure out all the technology, but I know it'll get smoother. And I'm just so honored. Time is our hottest commodity, and you sharing yours with me today is just a blessing beyond words. And so if there's no more questions, I think I'm going to call it for the day. I'm wishing you an extraordinary, soulful day, wildly attuning to every single second around you and just basking in the beauty that is your gifted life. Wherever you're at, in whatever stage, however you're growing, it's exactly where you need to be to learn what you need to learn to be able to evolve to the next extraordinary person of you. So I'm wishing you lots of love. I look forward to seeing you next Sunday, and please connect. Okay, take care, guys. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.